Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our panel on taking a story from book to film. I am moderating this today as Jocelyn Johnson is not able to be with us. I'm Djuanna Brockington. I am the chair of the 2022 Black Ink Planning Committee, and I am super excited to welcome Iris Bowling and Victoria Christopher Murray here today. So, before I let the ladies introduce themselves and speak about themselves, I want to give you a little background information. Iris Bowling is an award-winning USA Today best-selling author of 5 series totaling over 30 romantic suspense novels. In addition to writing, she has produced and directed several books to film projects and script writing projects for other authors. So welcome, Ms. Bowling.
Thank you.
And Victoria originally self published her first novel, Temptation, made numerous bestsellers lists with that, and remained on the Essence bestsellers list for 9 consecutive months. She was also nominated for an NAACP Image Award in Outstanding Literature. Welcome, Victoria, Christopher Murray. And of course, ladies, those were just really brief intros for 2 long, lustrous careers. So we're going to start with you, Iris. Tell us a little about yourself, how you started writing, and how you transitioned from books to film and all the things.
Okay. I actually started writing late in life. I didn't start writing until I was 50 years old. And I started with my Heart series, which was a political drama. And since that time, I have about 6 series out there, and most of them are still ongoing. Um, I love romance, but I also like killing people. So, I kind of mix the two with romance and suspense. I got into writing because I'm an avid reader. I was an avid reader, and I wanted to be able to tell some of these stories that was playing around in my head, and so I started writing. Now, how I got into film was really a test. I did it because we were at a period where we were seeing a lot of books that was written by people other than authors of color, but about Black life that was being picked up and being shown, being made into movies and things of that nature. And it was a number of people, they were complaining, we don't ever get our books, don't ever get picked up, and da 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 da. So I said, well, okay, well, let's find a way to do it ourselves. And so I went out, I took my very first novel that I wrote and didn't have the slightest idea of what I was doing. Let me be very honest about that. But we went out and we hired a cast and a crew. I did not know how to write a script at that time, so we hired someone to write the script, and we did a television show, and we did a six episodes, 1 hour long um, show, and we actually got it on air, which surprised us, but we got it on air, and by the third episode is when I started writing the scripts, because then it was fascinating to me at this point, and I wanted to learn how to do that. So in that first season of The Heart, it aired back in 2014 on the CW network at the time. And like I said, we had 6 1 hour episodes. And when we did it, let's be very clear, I did not know all the nuances and things that you really needed to know about good filmmaking. So I would give that first one we did a C, because we did get it on air. So I would give it a C. And of course, when you do something, I'm the type of person, I learn lessons, and I wanted to take those lessons and apply them again. So we went back and we did another season. We did season 2 of the Heart series, and that one came out really well. Um, and so we were encouraged, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to help other authors tell their stories on film too. And so I started working with the next project I did with Beverly Jenkins. And we did one of her novels and we made that into a movie. So I kind of stumbled into it because I have this way of I want to know if we can do it, let's do it for ourselves. Because then that way we can control the content, we can control the representation, and we can control the money aspect of it too, because I own all of our stuff 100%. You
Yes.
know, so if someone was to come in and say, "Hey, we want to distribute such and such and such," that stays in house. So that's how I stumbled. Well, that's how I got into writing, and that's how I stumbled into the filmmaking part of it too.
Thank you. That is fascinating, and I have a lot of questions. And so, really quickly, for folks who are watching this, we have a section at the top of the menu that you can put your questions in. And so, once I get through my questions and whatever else comes up, if we have time, we will definitely take your questions. So, all right, Victoria Christopher Murray, tell us, how did you get to writing and how did that evolve into film and television?
Okay, and I'm sorry that you can't see my picture. We've been trying to get me on screen, but you'd rather hear me than see me in this situation if we had a choice, as you said. But thank you for having me. First of all, I've been writing for well over 20 years now, and I have never, ever, and still don't write with the thought of a book becoming a movie. I stay a novelist. I kind of stay in my lane because I think that if I deliver good books, then somebody will want to turn it into a movie. So I just kind of stay in the novelist lane. And I was just going along writing, and I wrote book called Lust. I was starting to write the Seven Deadly Sins series, and I wrote the first one, Lust, and Patrick Bass of Essence Magazine read it. And he had been following my career for 20 years. And so he called up Sean Robinson, who used to be the anchor of Access Hollywood, the Black woman who was the anchor. And he knew that she wanted to get into making movies. And so he told her, I don't know if you know, have ever heard of this writer, but if you want to get into movies, this is the most commercial book she's ever written. And if it's going to be 7 books, it would be good for you. So we had known each other. You know how 2 degrees of separation, we kind of knew each other that way. She called me up and said she wanted to option it, but she wanted to go sell it as the Seven Deadly Sins. And I said, well, I got one book and I'm commitment phobic. And so I'm not sure I want to commit to 7. And she said, but what if I could get you a 7-book movie deal? And so I said, okay, how fast do you need me to write these things? And I didn't even have another idea. And she was the one that came up with the idea for Envy. We kind of talked it through. So when Sean went to sell this movie deal, and I'm going through all of this because I do have a purpose for this. When Sean went through this movie deal and went presented people, all she had was a finished book, Lust. She had the manuscript for Envy, and she had a promise that I would do 5 more. That's all she had. And I ended up signing a contract with Lifetime for 7 books. And all they needed was for me to finish 1 more. So over the fastest book I had ever written in my life was a book called Greed. And so they ended up buying 7 books and only 3 were written. And I wanted to tell that story, the whole thing of how it happened. The reason that's important is because I had a history of focusing on books. I had a history of just writing good books. And so I got paid money for books that were not yet written. because I had a history of writing good books. And I just want author, even though I think it's amazing that we are getting our books out there into film now. And when I grow up, I'm gonna be Iris because we've been watching her, even though I'm older than she is. When I grow up, I'm gonna be her because I love people who take the bull by the horn and don't wait for someone else to validate us. And
Absolutely.
so I think that is so awesome. But no matter how the deal comes to you, never forget you're a novelist first. And if you remember that you're a novelist first, the deals will come to you. So write your book and tell a full story.
Absolutely. I love that. And just from your intros, I have so many thoughts, but I'm going to try to be organized. So, Iris, I'm going to back up a little bit. And you've brought the works of several authors. You've brought the works of several authors to the screen, including our keynote, as you mentioned, Beverly Jenkins. What are some unique challenges to adapting another author's work?
Well, the first thing that I kept in mind was that I wanted to tell their story the way that they wrote their story. I wanted to take every step that I did with it. I checked it with Bev because I wanted to make sure I was telling her story that way. Now, let me be honest. I was already in love with this story. I am a Beverly Jenkins fan. I love her historicals. I love her contemporaries. And this was one of my favorites. And as a matter of fact, when she said, Iris Bowling is going to do one of my books, and this was after I did the Heart series. She said Iris Bowling is going to do one of my books, and she asked me which one I wanted to do. Can you imagine? It's like, give me a candy shop, why don't you? But and I chose to do Daily Sexy because I loved that story. I loved the strong Black female, and I think I said this before. Representation is important. And when Beverly writes these strong females all the time. Absolutely. And so with this particular one, I just wanted to make sure I stayed true to her book. I stayed true to the story that she was telling and the way that she told the story. And I think that the thing I had to be careful with is I write books too. I write romantic suspense. I did not want to put my spin on her story in her story. Okay. I wanted to tell her story the way that she did. And that's the tricky part. Especially when you're an author, and you even when we read books, we read books and we say, oh, I would have did such and such and such. And instead of taking it that way, I would have did this with it. Even when we read other books. So with this, the tricky part is to make sure that you tell the story that author wrote. And with the other scripts that I have written for other authors, I actually take them through stages. As I'm putting that script together, I will send it to them. And I will send it to them and say, hey, read through this and make sure that this script fits your story. And when it does, then I feel like I've done the job that I was supposed to do. But that's the key for me, is to make sure I'm telling that author's story their way.
Absolutely. So I kind of the flip side for that, Victoria, is so you've had your adaptations with Black producers, and The X-Files is being produced by two Black women, Lust and Envy, which you mentioned earlier, part of the Seven Deadly Sins. How has working with Black creatives impacted the process of taking your books to film?
Oh, that is a great question, because it is not one of the things I've discovered is that it's not the Black, it's the female. What I mean by that, Lust was a female director. Now, she was Black, but she's biracial. But Lust was a female director, and then Envy was a male director. So we just keeping it in here among us, right? It ain't going with what we say it here, stay it here, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
But female directors get us. They get us. They get our stories. And then I noticed that the male directors, because we just finished filming Wrath, and we have I love him as a male director, but TD Jakes sends a male producer to work for his part, and Sean and I are saying, they don't get us. There was a scene in Lust, and I don't know if anyone will remember this, if anyone saw the movie, where when Tank I don't even remember the people's names, I just know their real names. When Tank goes to the door and Kerry Hilson has eaten some yogurt, and yogurt is dripping down the side of her face. And so Tank goes and takes the yogurt off her skin and then licks it. Every woman I know said, ew, ew, that's nasty. It's COVID. What you doing? But every man was like, oh yeah, go get her. And I'm like, what? It is one of the things that I have noticed is that I'm not sure the ethnicity matters. I'm not sure the race matters. I think it's men tell a different story than women.
Ooh, you are speaking truth.
I think she is.
It is. Yes. I'm just so glad that you brought that up, because I would have thought, oh, it makes so much difference to have Black people. Not if they Black men, because they're going to be licking yogurt off your face. And I was like, are you freaking kidding? And I mean, we fought against that. Sean and I were like, that's the nastiest thing. If anybody came to my door, that's not lust. That is like, you nasty, go home. But the men thought it was sexy. And I didn't see a thing sexy about that.
Wow. That's okay. So that kind of then ties back to what Iris was talking about, like owning the narrative, not just owning the product, but also owning the narrative. So if you guys could like speak to having these opportunities to really shape how Black women in particular are seen right now in the romance genre. Like, let's talk about that, because your people are on screen. So literally, they're not living in Djuanna's head. I can look at them. I can see their lives. I can respond to them in a very visual way, even if I'm at home in my living room. So speak to being able to control the narrative, but also control the look and the energy, if that makes sense.
It does.
And Iris has much more control of that than I do, which is why I'm going to be her when I grow up. Just watch.
She keeps saying that. She keeps saying that. Listen, let me tell you. I think the one thing that Victoria just said that was so key, and I'm glad she said it, is it's wonderful to have Black directors and producers and executive producers on any project that involves African American lives. That's wonderful. But what she just said was so true. It could be a Black male and they can screw things. They don't
even know,
because they have a different sense of romance than what women do. I'm not saying all of them. So my male romance readers, don't hit me. Don't come at me. But for the most part, males have a different perspective of what is sensual, or what is sexy than what women do. And I felt Victoria when she said, when the people saw that, and she said, women went, oh, COVID is happening out here. I heard that, because that is what that is what a woman would say. But I think I mentioned this before. I think representation is important. And when you talk about doing romance, one of the things that really irked me is every female on certain romance stories, they're about as big as this. They're all, they're all the same size. Everybody is a size 3 or 4 or a size 6. And that's great because I know the camera and all of that. But when we're talking about our bodies, we have different shapes and we have different forms, and we can be just as sexy and just as sensuous as anyone, as our size 6 people. So when it comes to portraying that and representing that, I really love the power of being able to represent us as we are.
Absolutely.
And I really like the idea of being able to control what that vision looked like.
Mhm.
A lot of times, a lot of our stories, we were always portrayed in certain roles. We was a best friend. We was a the secretary, or we was something in all of these films that's out there. But rarely did we see where we were the boss. We was the company owners. We were the lead detectives or things. We just were portrayed in small roles. Well, when you control, you can portray your cast or your characters in the way that they are,
Yeah.
and love it, and love it. And I think control is not just the directing part of it, it's the producing, it's the executive producers. They're the ones that have the control, that say, okay, we're going with this person, we're going with that person, we're going for this look. The control is there. And I think it's important for us to understand that control is key, because you can have, and like Victoria said, there's 2 ways you can come at this. You can write your stories and let someone else adapt those stories and do all the financing that's connected with that story and everything like that. But you better believe they're the ones that's in control.
That's right.
They're the ones that get to say yay, nay, or bye bye, girl.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
When you control, when you control, you get to select who's going to be on that screen and how they're going to represent your characters. And that representation is important because somebody's daughter or son is watching this, and they need to see that their future also includes being a physics, being an astronaut, being whatever you can possibly be, and not always a best friend or a secretary,
Mhm.
or anything like that. Representation is important, and when you have control, you control the vision and the representation that's put out there.
Absolutely.
And I
And
think that is so important, because would you mind if I just added on to what Iris is saying, because she's getting to come from the position of having total control,
mhm.
and I'm coming from the position of having no control. But they have my total story, so all the characters are Black. So they have the story, but I think it is very important for people to understand the difference. I don't have any control. I'm a consulting producer, and that's just so that they could put my name up there. They're
Mm.
not really trying to hear what I have to say. And they did a great job with the first 2 books, with Lust and Envy, staying close to the story.
Mhm.
With Wrath and Greed, it's going to be very different, and they've made some good decisions for some good reasons. They did things because they said of how it's going to look on the screen. One of the things like with Wrath, they don't want to put a Black man up there with Wrath. They just don't. The Lifetime is saying that they, after George Floyd, there's some things, there's decisions they've made, and they don't want a Black man looking like that on the screen.
Okay.
And I can appreciate that that's not what I did in the book, but what I've decided to do, and I had a long talk with Rhonda McKnight about this last year, a couple of months ago, and other authors. What I've decided to do is that if you do sell your rights to someone else, sell your rights to someone else.
Ooh.
They have paid you for that.
Yes.
Exactly. They have paid you more money than you would have gotten. So they've paid you pretty good for that.
Ooh, ma'am.
Sell your rights and don't lose out on a good opportunity because you are stuck on some fake people that you made up in your head. Because I've had a lot of people say to me, so how do you feel about how they changed Draft? It don't matter how I feel. They pay.
They pay for the right to change that check.
And I'm not giving back the money. But let's say I was going to give back the money. What in the world am I fighting over? I am fighting over fake people who don't exist. We had a brown girl, because I have a publishing company, and 5 of our books got picked up as movies. One author said, well, I don't know, because I talked to the director and he's going to do it like this and everything. The director said bye and moved on to the next author.
Wow.
And she's not going to get picked up with anybody else. And so she lost out on an opportunity to get her foot in the door because she was upset about somebody she made up in her head. Let's not lose sight of the fact that these people are fake. They're fake.
You know what? That just leads me to, so we use the term intellectual property. And that, I think, gets people right where that example you just gave gets people like in the gut, because yes, these are people we made up. They do not exist except in our heads. And so if someone takes that intellectual property and twists it, those people still live in your head if you are letting them. Yeah. So I think that's a really great point, that
or if they
feel like they have to trade off creativity for the dollars.
But they're not trading creativity. You already did your creative part in the book.
Yep.
You're a novelist. You did your creative part in the book. I wrote a great book called Wrath. I love that. Out of all of the 4 deadly sins, that's my favorite. Great book. But now I sold the intellectual property. I'm glad you said it that way. Yeah. I sold the movie rights intellectual property. And so let them go do the movie rights the way they want. I still have the gift of writing novels. I will go write some more novels.
That is amazing. And also, people will always go back to the source. They are always going, if this movie is doing this thing, I need to go back to the source. I need to see what else this person has written so that when the next movie comes out, I'll be ready. So I think those very valid points from both of you. And I kind of want to shift a little. I have 2 questions before I move into taking questions from the audience. So audience, remember, if you have some questions, put it in the chat with the Q and the A, those 2 little bubbles for us. But so one is, what are your thoughts around, and I know that she is not necessarily romance, but there is a romance element to this YA book. Tomi Adeyemi, who it was just announced Paramount is doing her Children of Blood and Bone, and there's a lot is being made about her age and her ability to write the script. What are your thoughts around us taking up space, finally getting those stories, like those stories leading the publishing news, and any predictions for what the future of Black film, television, from books looks like? Whoever
I,
wants to
I
answer.
think we have a wide open field if we want it. I think it's there for the taking. There are so many ways we can get our stories out there now. And it was a time you only had certain studios that were looking at books or stories, but Issa Rae and some others have demonstrated there are ways now that you can get your story told. So I think that we have a wide open field. All we have to do is um, go out there and reach for it, grab it, and do it. It's so many ways that it can be done now. Now, as for the young lady you mentioned and her ability to write that script, those were her characters. So if those were her characters, I would think that she may have the best insight into how that script should go. However, there's script writing is not for everyone. Script writing is not for everyone. And Victoria said something else too that I think we need to tap into. Some people are authors. That's what they want to be. That's what they want to do. That's where their heart is. So when that product comes out, it's going to show that they're an author. Ooh. They may not be a filmmaker. They may not be into writing that script. They may not be into all of the pieces that go along with putting a film together. They may not be in there. So with those, Victoria's right. If you're going to sell your intellectual property, sell it. You can't sell your house and then tell people how to live in that house. So you can't sell your book for a movie and then tell them how to do the movie.
Oh,
so if you're going,
such a great analogy.
If you're going to sell it, just know you're selling it, and you're selling it to those people. The people now own it, and they can do whatever it is that they want to do with it. You don't want nobody coming in your house and telling you how you can live in your house. That's why we hate homeowners associations, because they keep telling you what you can do with your property that you bought.
Absolutely.
Think about that. So she definitely, what she said was exactly right. If you're selling it, you're selling it. And you can always, because you're an author first, so you can always go out there and write you another book.
Amen.
You can always do that and get it to the people. But I think we have a wide range of opportunity to go out there and tell our stories and get our stories out there the way that we want our stories to be out there. If we want to grab it, and if we want to take 100% ownership, because remember, when you're doing it from my way, when you're doing it the independent way, you are 100% responsible for everything that goes down. So make sure you're ready for that, because it's not for the faint at heart. Mm-hmm. So I think the playing field is really out there now for anyone who wants to do that.
So, and I agree, because there's so many formats out there now. There's so many platforms that are looking for property. They need to put content.
Yeah. They're looking for content.
And so they just need us. So I don't have anything to add to what Iris said, except I do want to say something. I can't remember which one of you said it before, that once somebody likes working with you, they'll keep coming back. Lifetime has come back to me after the 7 Deadly Sins. They've optioned 2 more of my books. And then I have an option with someone else, because Lifetime likes working with me. And do you know why they like working with me? Because I always say, whatever, did you mail the check? Whatever, did you mail the check? Whatever, because I'm going to keep going back I write novels. And so if they do anything that I don't know what they could do that I don't like, because it's fake people. I'm not related to them. And so I can always go write another book
Yeah.
and sell it to somebody else. But if
So,
you become an issue for them, you will never sell a book.
so Victoria, is there a piece of property you have, intellectual property, that you want to see that maybe people are sleeping on?
Yes.
Okay. Will you share?
Well, there's one that the book that I am most proud of. Well, the personal librarian has already been optioned, but a book that will not get optioned, and there's a good reason for it not being optioned, is Stand Your Ground, which is a book that I won the NAACP Image Award for. It was before the personal librarian, it was my best book to me. And a lot of people have looked at it and then they said, nah, give me this one. Nah, give me that one.
Mm-hmm.
But they're right. They're making the right decision. They don't want to put that sadness up on, even though there are some people who have shown movies similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you know what? We could sell a movie Lust way better than we could sell Stand Your Ground.
Mm. Gotcha. Gotcha. And so, Iris, this will be my last question before I get to the, we have like 3 questions in the chat. What are you looking for? Like, what's that next property that you're thinking you want to do, or what genre are you interested in moving into?
Oh, girl, you done open the door now. Mm. My last book started in on my fantasy dream, my fantasies that I've had. I'm romance at the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm romance at the heart. I do like killing people, so now I have suspense where I can, I'll let her make love over here, and then I'll let her kill him over there. So I do have that going on, but now I've gotten into a little bit into that fantasy realm. So the 3 different series I'm working on now, you have romance, you have suspense, and you have fantasy going on. And I'm going to continue on that route because I love all of those genres, and I love telling my stories my way. The one thing I would like to do is I'm gonna get with Victoria on this. I'm gonna go find me somebody to send me a check, but I also want to keep doing.
Yeah,
I
but
also would like,
there's so many great things about what you do, and that's why
yeah.
I'm telling you, watch out. You're gonna be like Victoria said she was gonna be me when she grew up. She grew up.
I would be. I would tell. I was about to say. I still want to do what I do. I am an author at heart. That's my first love. That's what I do. But I also love seeing those stories turned into film. And it takes financing. Let's be very clear. It takes financing to do that. Now my first TV series, I financed that on my own. But the second one, we did some crowd fundraising for that. And with Daily Sexy, we did fundraising for that, crowd fundraising for that as well. But it does take financing to do the films and do them the way that you really want them to be done. It takes financing. So what I plan to do, my next step is I'm going to sell one of my series to one of those networks and let them send me the check, and then I'm going to use the check in order to do my films that I want to do.
Yeah.
It's the best of both lives.
Yeah. And and that is not, I know Iris, she's not kidding. And let me tell you why that is such an important way to go. There's so many of us as authors who do 2 kinds of writing. I have books with major publishers, and I have books that I publish on my own. Because I love having the control, but the money helps you get what else you need to do. So Iris is talking truth right there.
That is a very valid point. So the questions have come in, and I don't want to be the question hog, although I could talk to you ladies all day because my brain is going in millions of directions. But the first question we got was from Cleo Brown, and Cleo is a local author. And she wants to hear more about pitching a story and how you pitched to CW.
You know, it was not as difficult as even I thought it was going to be. We were actually in California. We was at a book event in California, and a couple of us was in the room, and we were simply talking, saying, "Okay, we know once you touch the heart, it's too long of a story to be, broken down to an hour and 20 minutes. So we're gonna have to make it into, an episode type show, And it's funny because everybody's talking about, oh, I love the way that they did Bridgerton and da 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 da, and I'm like, man, that's what we did in 2014. But anyway, so we broke it down into these shows, and we actually made an appointment to go and meet with the local network here, and we told them what we wanted to do, and we wanted to see if they would be interested in airing it. And when we shared the story, the synopsis of the story, and how we was going to break it down into the 6 episodes, they said, "Yeah, we'll be interested in that." And for me, at that time, who would have thought you just contact them and say, "Hey, we'd like to talk to you about this idea for a TV series," and they actually made the appointment. And you know what? I kept that appointment. I kept that appointment, and we went in and we talked. It took us a while. We were kept, going back and forth on things and stuff, but we stuck with it, and we ended up on CW.
That is amazing. So the next question, Iris, I have another question for you. Can you talk to us about raising PE money for promotion? So I'm not quite sure what PE money is.
I'm not sure what they mean by PE either, but I would think that they're talking about raising the funds in order to finance the movie. And I would tell you, and Rhonda is someone that we've talked back and forth a little bit on some of this work, and I love sharing this knowledge with people because all of us can get out here and do this. We really, I have a great following of readers, and God bless them. I can go out here and say, "Hey, I want to go and do a movie about designing a hat," and they will be right there to support me. So God bless them. They whatever ideas I put out there, they're with me on it. Raising funds to do any project is difficult, especially in certain times. With what we've been going through for the last 2 years, it's been difficult times for people. However, the one thing I would say is you definitely not going to get it if you don't ask. If you don't step out there and say, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I need this amount of money in order to be able to do it. This is what I can give you in return." If there's something, that you can give in return. Here's what I can give to you in return. And some people are going to automatically say, "Hey, I'm going to do that." And they will send in whatever they can. And let me say this, every $5 count. Every $5 count. When we did Daily Sexy, did I get the support that I anticipated? No, I did not. However, we got enough of the support so that between Beverly and I, we was able to put the rest to it and have that film made the way that we wanted to have it made. So the one thing I would tell you is we did fundraising. We did I think we did Kickstarter on one of them. I think we did Kickstarter for Beverly But if I was to do it again, I would do private fundraising
Mm-hmm.
because you're not sharing any percentage of that with these companies that's out there. You are going out there and you're funding it with clear funds. Another thing I want to tell people about: check your states, because a lot of states do have what they call film offices, and they will give you grants. And not only will they give you grants for making films, they will also give you tax breaks. Like I have a company and I do everything underneath a Siri Austin Entertainment, and they will give you tax breaks at the end of the year. So check your state, see if they have a film office. If they do, you definitely want to tap into them and let them know that you're out there doing it, because now there is a lot of people out there making films. You can anybody can go out there and make a film now.
Mm-hmm.
But let those people in the film office know your name, because they have contacts that you can reach out to get things done too. But those grants out there help tremendously, tremendously.
Dropping
So I
all
would
the
say
knowledge.
private financing, but check your state. Like the state of I'm in Virginia. We're a Commonwealth. Lord help us after tomorrow. We got a new governor coming and all that stuff. But anyway, we have a film office, and that film office have worked with me on all three of our projects, and they were set. We had another project I was working on with Brenda Jackson, and they were set to also give us some assistance with that one as well. So check your state, check the film office, see if they have a film office. That's the first thing that you want to do, because that's what we call free money. All you have to do is keep your records straight. Send them those records and they will cut you a check.
Wow.
That's my knowledge for today.
That was a nice mic drop.
Good
And
knowledge.
so, Victoria, you're going to get the last question. And Gerald asks, does Victoria have a preference for type of adaptation, television, movie, miniseries based on the novel, or no?
That's a good question. No, I don't. Because again, I leave it up to the experts. But I'm really glad that Gerald asked that question, because the people, and they haven't made the announcement yet, so they'll make it soon. But the people who optioned the personal librarian are going to make it into a mini series, and so that I would have never thought of that. But they want to tell Belle's life completely. And so that's why I didn't need to be in there, because I would have been thinking about some little old short movie, and they're turning it into a 6 series, making it episodes. So I love that.
That is awesome. And so I'm going to ask you guys, I mean, you've dropped so much knowledge today, and like, I'm just hyped about thinking about the future of film and movies and television for not just women, but Black women, and how we show up in romance, because it is time that our romantic stories are shared with the world, and not like once a year or once a decade with like going back and pulling like old Zora material and twisting things. So leave the audience with some words of wisdom. I'm not like you haven't already, but any other nuggets you want to share before we wrap?
I think the most important nugget for me is something I've already said. You're a novelist. When someone comes to buy your book or option your book, and it could be an independent producer like Iris, let them do their job. Don't get so wedded to it that you think you know everything and you become difficult to work with, or don't walk away from it because you're not going to get that chance again.
Thank you. And
Now,
Iris?
the one thing I would say is I think that the most important thing that I can tell anyone out there is believe in yourself, believe in your ability to go out there and do. If you think that your story It's something that needs to be told, and it needs to be told on film. You have two options. You can go the way that Victoria went and collect your check, which I ain't mad at all, or you can go out there and find a way to do it for yourself. Don't let anyone out there come to you and say, well, what makes you think your book good enough to be a movie? Well, if you feel like your story is good enough to be out there, believe in yourself. Go out there and do it.
Ladies, thank you guys so much. Like this, I know I wasn't supposed to be here, but I was supposed to be here because the way y'all just like lit a fire under me, and just as a writer, like being true to myself and writing the best story that I can.
Mhm.
And whatever happens on the flip side of that, as Victoria said, y'all go ahead and with these imaginary people.
Yeah, just fake people.
Give me my check while I go write some more friends
Make
over
some
here.
more fake people. You can make up some more fake people.
Yes. And Iris, just being a Black woman in the forefront and just saying, here's what I'd like to see, and not waiting on anyone to do it for you. We just appreciate that. So again, this was, I think, also a really good balance for this particular topic. So thank you, ladies,
Just
so much.
balance.
And on behalf of the Black Ink Planning Committee, we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who attended. And we hope you got something from us.
Yes, I know.
Absolutely.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. You guys hang out with me for a minute.
Okay.
Okay.